It's Thursday night, and we're back live on the Big Mountain.
Welcome back to the Big Mountain. 2 live episodes in 1 week.
Awesome.
We were just here 2 days ago.
Love it.
But yes, it's fun times. We've already got some people in the chat talking about that Georgia game that just ended. We know the Duke game is on right now. And I think we'll have the score at the bottom of the screen for those that care to follow the Duke game. Duke versus Ole Miss. I should say the Ole Miss game because they're the ranked team.
I'll tell you what, Ole Miss better win this or the ACC is going to be sucking.
Yes, for sure. Happy New Year. That's right. We did Happy New Year Eve, and now we can say Happy New Year in the new year. So welcome back to the mountain. We've got some big plans. I've been telling people on X, some big plans for the month of January and some big plans for the year of 2025. We were going to try to have some new firsts for the Big Mountain. So I'm looking forward to it. So we're going to get right into it. We have 3 bowls that we're going to be picking tonight. And then we've already picked the games from today. We both took Duke, getting 14.5. We were the same on that. And we'll see if they can keep it close. We both think they probably can. So we got 3 bowls. 2 of them are Friday, tomorrow. And then I believe the last one is on Saturday, the Bahama Bowl, if I remember correctly. And we'll talk briefly about the FCS Championship game, which is on Monday, January 6th. Very excited for that game. So football season ain't over. We got a lot of football left here. We'll talk a little CFP recap at the end, well, after we get through our picks. I'll probably talk more about recaps.
And I saw on FanDuel they were offering odds on the FCS championship game.
Yes.
So that's pretty awesome.
And early odds are out for the semifinal games. I'll maybe bring that up here a little bit. I kind of really like one of them. So let's get right into it here. We've got the First Responders Bowl. This is North Texas versus Texas State. North Texas coming in here at 6-6 from the American, and Texas State 7-5 from the Sun Belt. Maybe slightly disappointing season here for Texas State. I think they would have liked to have been better than 7-5 on the season, but they're still a really strong team coming in here. Steve, I'll give you my thoughts and I'll give my pick, and I'll let you tell me what you think on it. But North Texas defense struggled overall. They did have a really good passing game throughout the season. I got to see North Texas when they played Wyoming back in week 4, I believe it was, or at least it was Wyoming's 4th game. I don't know if it was week 4. But anyway, really good passing game here for North Texas, but not a great defense. Texas State has a really good offense. They've been having good offenses over the past few years. So I think Texas State's going to be able to put up some points. Of course, the spread here, it's not easy. It's not an easy spread. You know, you got to score or beat the spread by 14 touchdowns. But I just think there's enough pass offense and just overall offense from Texas State, from the Bobcats, to be able to win and cover that spread. So I'm taking Texas State minus 13.5.
I mean, you pretty much said it all. When I saw the spread, I was like, ooh, that's a significant spread. I don't like going that high in these bowl games. However, looking at these teams, I just think Texas State is a lot better than North Texas. They seem to be handling the transition next year about the same as far as losing players, whatever. So I think Texas State's about a 2-touchdown better team than North Texas. So I'm also going with Texas State to cover the 13.5.
Yeah, a team I really followed last year more so than this year. I know I put out some bets on North Texas last year and just really like the offense, like what they got going on down there. Again, maybe a little underwhelming this year from what they were hoping for, but very good team. So let's get to our next one here, Steve. I'm going to let you go first because it is a Big Ten team. We have Minnesota coming into this bowl, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, at 7-5 on the season, and Virginia Tech coming in at 6-6. So what are your thoughts here in this bowl?
Yeah, so, you know, I was low on Minnesota coming into the season, but they really played some good, tough games. They found their quarterback, and they found ways to win all season. I really like the way they finished the season, and yes, they did lose to Penn State. I think it was the second to last game. However, they played really, really well against Penn State, gave them everything they could handle. And again, like the way they were closing strong. Virginia Tech, you know, I liked this team too. I was high on them to do well, and they didn't finish quite as high. I thought maybe they could win 8 or 9 games. They kind of limped down the stretch a little bit. So I'm going with Mini to cover the 8.5. I think they're about. I feel like they're about a 10 points better team. So I'm taking Minnesota to cover the 8.5 points.
So you think your boy, who's the coach? What's his name? Coach for Minnesota.
Yeah. Shoot.
Anyway,
Yeah.
He's going to get mayo dumped on his head.
Mr. Row the Boat. Yes. Yeah.
He's going to get, and I forgot, I meant to say that, Steven, but the winner of this game, I don't think I would appreciate that. Mayo's pretty greasy. I don't know. I don't think
I'd much rather be able to eat the Pop-Tart and the Pop-Tart
Absolutely.
Mayo dumped over my head.
Did you see them? They were like stripping those Pop-Tarts.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
PJ Fleck.
I mean, PJ Fleck. I knew it started with an F.
Yes. Yeah. PJ Fleck.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I'm also taking Minnesota. 8.5, a little bit higher than what I would like here, to be honest. I'd love this at 6.5 and under that touchdown. Of course, everybody would. That's why it's at 8.5. But I think Virginia Tech's defense here, they're going to be depleted in this game. I think they're going to struggle. And Minnie's going for, they have a 7-game postseason streak going right now, looking to continue that. Fleck has done really well in the postseason. So I'm with you. I'm taking Minnie.
So I got to give a little spanking here. I see Big Mama 69 show up in the chat.
Okay.
And first of all, we got to say, well, we got to go back to the week before where they were all over Clemson. We got to remind Big Mama that, Clemson lost, which is always a good thing. It's always fun to do. But then they had to talk smack against Tyler Warren, the Mackey Award winner. And as I said, we're going to talk more about this game later. But if you saw Tyler Warren's performance, I think Tyler Warren watches the show.
No.
He saw Big Mama 69 talk that smack and said, I got to spank this person. So take your spanking and like it.
Yikes. We're going to get more to that game here in a little bit. I have comments about Mr. Warren.
Okay.
And that game in general. But we have one more game that we need to pick, and that is the Bahamas Bowl. This is Buffalo versus Liberty. Liberty coming in at 8-3 on the season. I said they're going to have a loss. I actually said I expect them to have 2 losses. They one up me, and they had 3 losses for the season. Big disappointment from the past couple years. I mean, nothing wrong with 8-3.
Yeah.
But for Liberty, they're used to going undefeated and being all this and all that. So back to earth here a little bit for them. And Buffalo coming in, they had a really strong year, 8-4, really strong MAC team here. They did get their butts kicked by Ohio there, I think about 4 weeks left in the season, give or take. But they have a good team. So I'll go here first. I know, Liberty doesn't have Slater, quarterback. He's not playing. Their top running back, Cooley, he's not playing. Buffalo's basically at full strength. I mean, I think they have 1 or 2 guys not going to play, but it's basically the Buffalo team that have, basically won or that have been playing through this whole season. I do think Buffalo's defense is on the weaker side. I think if Slater was playing in this game, they would be the favorites. Liberty, clearly they're not the favorites right now. They're actually getting 2.5, and I may surprise some people here. I'm going to take Liberty, even all the hate that I have given them, and being overrated and even getting in the CFP last year. It's been a lot of hate that I've given to them. I'm actually going to go against the grind here a little bit. I'm going to take the points with Liberty in this, and we'll kind of go from there.
So I'm not sure if you talked about the numbers yet, where we are for our bowl picks for the
season.
season.
I was supposed to. I messed that up.
Well, this will be a good lead into that.
Okay. All right. Let's do this one, and we'll get to that.
Okay. So here's the thing. I'm going to give you an opportunity to catch up.
Okay.
So I'm taking Buffalo minus 2.5. I think with everybody that Liberty has out, I think they're close, evenly matched, but just Buffalo more stability with what they got coming back. They've been playing together all year, so I'm taking them to cover the 2.5, which gives you, a chance to come back a little bit.
It does, and let's get that. I meant to start with that, and I even have my notes written, but my notes are written at the bottom of the page, which means if I go in order, that doesn't freaking work for me.
Help.
And I also like to keep our producer on his toes.
Yes.
That's okay. So anyway, those are our 3 picks, but you're right. So we agree on 2, we disagree on 1, and we're getting down to the end. So to be clear, we're going to include the both semifinals games and the national championship game in the little in the tally that we're doing.
Everything all the way to the end.
All the way to the end. So we have these 3 games. We're going to have 3 more games, which obviously we're not picking those. But here's where we're at after yesterday. So it doesn't include today's games, but Steve and I both agreed on today's game, so it's kind of irrelevant.
Yep.
So here we go. Steve is sitting at 25-14, so he's hitting on 64% in bowls, which is pretty damn good.
Making money.
I'm sitting at 24-15. I'm one off you, 62%. So again, very happy to be at 62% with the bowls. As I said, we agreed on the 2 games today. We both picked Georgia, giving 1.5. So we were wrong with that. So Steve is actually now 25-15, and JY's 24-16. Still right around 60%. Can't be upset with that. We both took Duke. You just heard the games we picked. So my one game right now that I have a shot to get back, believe it or not, is frickin' Liberty.
Well, we're both still on the profit side of the margins
We are.
there, so
Yeah.
we're doing good. I think better than last year, and last year was real tight as well. So we'll see.
I beat you by 1. I don't remember exactly. I think we were both of us were very close to 50% last year.
It would be pretty ironic after all the shit talking you did against Liberty last year if they were the ones that brought you over and helped you beat me this year.
I was going to go the other way, and they're going to really rail me and be like, screw you, JY. You talk so much crap. We're going to make sure Steve wins this stuff.
That could be too.
So who knows? I don't know. I don't feel great about Liberty, but you never know. And we got to disagree on something.
Yes.
It's not nearly as fun.
Well, especially when you're the guy trailing.
Yeah. and again, to be clear, we make our picks separately.
Yes.
And then I combine. I don't look at what Steve did and be like, oh, I think I like this one better. That's not how we play. We're fair. We try to be fair about this. So those are our picks. Like I said, we're still going to pick the semis, and we're still, of course, going to pick the national championship game. I do want to bring up, before we get into our recaps, we're going to start with the Boise-Penn State game here first. But the lines are out, I believe. The line for Ohio State versus Texas was 6.5, 6 in that ballpark, 5.5, 6.5. It was right in there. I love it. I'm telling you right now, if you can get them at 6.5 or 5, it may have been 5.5 actually.
I grabbed it at 5.5.
Okay,
already.
so maybe it's at 5.5. I like it at 5.5, 6.5. I'm gonna go bet. I didn't bet it yet. I'm still gonna bet it. I like them under the touchdown. That line being under the touchdown. Ohio State looks unbelievable. Put that Michigan loss behind them. They still care about it. The fans certainly care about it. But I'll tell you what, this team is on a freaking mission, and we'll get to the Oregon game here in a bit. But anything about that line?
I saw it last night, actually, like a little bit after midnight, I think. And
Yeah.
It was 2.5 points.
No.
So whoever grabbed
Holy
that,
crap.
yes. And then when I woke up this morning, I think it was 6.5. And I was going to take it there, but then it dropped to 5.5.
Right.
Ohio State is the favorite, and
Okay.
I had to jump on it.
So there it is. And then I just looked right at the end of this game. I don't know how as you said, it started at 2.5, and I saw the line being 1.5 with Notre Dame being the favorite. So Notre Dame giving 1.5. If you can get Penn State getting points, take that bet.
Yeah, I like that 1.5. I think is pretty fair, somewhere in there. So yeah.
So that's where I'm at. Kind of early. They're not technically our picks, but I wanted to put them early lines out. I think there's value. I certainly wouldn't want that OSU game going above the touchdown. That's why I'm going to bet it right now.
A lot of times, if you bird dog those early lines,
Yeah.
you can find some great value.
All right, well, let's talk about some recaps. And we want to hear from you guys as well. Commenters, love to hear what your thoughts were on some of these games. We're going to start with the Friday. Oh, I did it again, Friday night.
Yeah.
The New Year's Eve,
New Year's Eve
game. Penn State versus Boise State. The score ends up 31-14. Of course, Penn State with the win in the Fiesta Bowl. And I got to say, I enjoyed watching this game. I mean, it was almost 50-50. You had all that blue and white on one side and a ton of orange and blue on the other side. Boise fans showed out big time here in Arizona. It was fantastic. And, Boise kind of throwback, if you will. They used the uniforms very similar to what they had on when they played Oklahoma with that big, upset game there many, many years ago. So that was pretty cool to see, too.
Some of my Penn State people I follow that were in the stadium said it was actually about 2/3 Boise fans.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. It didn't quite look like that on the screen.
It depends on what they're showing.
Yeah,
I think they kept showing that Penn State section. It was like in the one corner of the end zone.
Okay.
But most people in-house said it was Boise was probably about 66% to 33%.
Okay, all right. Well, total yards here. I'm just going to give out a couple stats, and I want to get your thoughts, Steve, and then I'll give mine. But total yards here, Boise actually has more yards than Penn State. 412 to 387. Of course, they were trying to play catch up there at the end of the game, and they had passing yards of 304. And this was only the second time, I should say, the second quarterback in 2 seasons that have gone over 300 yards against Penn State. So again, anybody that has any question about Maddox Madsen, I know he threw the picks. I'm going to get into that here in a little bit, but I thought he looked very controlled. I thought he played a really solid game. I'm going to talk about the picks here in a little bit. I want to hear what you have to say as well. But that's a great stat. You know, only the second guy in 2 seasons to have 300 passing yards against Penn State. In terms of turnovers, as I said, a huge key to this game. Boise turns it over 4 times. Penn State only turns it over 1 time. Ouch. That, when you lose the turnover battle by 3, you can't win games. Very difficult to win games. And actually, that was one of the things we talked about in our preview video. Both of these teams really able to protect the ball, very low turnovers offensively for both of these teams. I mean, Genty fumbled twice. He lost one. They actually got one back, which is very uncharacteristic for him. Of course, he's playing one of the best defenses in the daggone country. I think as we go through the CFP, people are going to realize how good that damn defense actually is. But Genty here, the second running back this year to go over 100 yards against the Penn State defense. So he's one of 2 guys that were able to get 100 yards against him. And you nailed it, Steve. You said he's going to be right around 100, and that's exactly where he was at. I was a little more optimistic in that preview. I said he'd be closer to 150. And, he never broke a big one. Never broke a big one. He broke some moderate ones here or there. But, man, Penn State did a great job at the line of scrimmage. And then the other thing I just want to point out here is Boise's the second team that outgained Penn State. I talked about that 412 to 387. Just the second team to outgain them this season. So, yes, am I trying to kind of polish a turd? Not that they laid a turd, but, polish a loss. Yeah, I kind of am. But I think there's a lot of positives to come out of that when you're playing a freaking amazing defense. So I have other thoughts, Steve, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, first of all, it was awesome. We did a live show that day, so thank you to our producer PWB for stepping up, and thank you JY, and it was awesome. And thanks to all of our dwellers who showed up for that live show. It was fantastic. We enjoy it, and it was great. I mean, the situation, the Boise playing Penn State, like we had to do, and it was so much fun. So that's my first thought on there. And honestly, other than my very first thought on the game, it went almost exactly like I thought it would.
Yeah.
I said I thought Boise would drive down the field in the first drive and score first. Well, they did have a nice drive down the field. I think they missed a field goal. I think is how that ended. So
Dalmas missed 2 on the game.
Yeah, so I mean, but they had a nice drive. I mean, they were moving the ball.
Yep.
Genty was running. Maddox Madsen was making plays, and it was pretty much what I expected there.
And to your point, getting points, field goal on the first drive to show them, hey, we're in this game. Massive. Yes. I agree with you.
Yeah. Yep. But unfortunately they missed the field goal.
Yep.
And then what I said cannot happen, I don't know if you remember, I said the one thing that cannot happen is Boise cannot let Penn State get out to a lead early, because then they're going to be able to play their game of running the ball, playing defense, rushing the quarterback, and Penn State hits those 2 nice touchdown passes early. The first one was to Warren. The second one, I think, was to Amari Evans. And Drew Aller, I mean, he was locked in, especially at the beginning of that game. Some of those throws that he was hitting, I thought he looked really good. There were some other plays where, the Boise defense, especially that pass rush, they were bringing all kinds of blitzes, exotic blitzes, and they were getting in his kitchen and disrupting his game, especially later. But at the beginning of the game, he throws 2 beautiful touchdown passes, gets them out to a lead. And again, allowed them to play the type of ball that they like to play. Now, my thoughts on Boise are they were pretty much what I thought. I mean, they played Penn State for most of this game straight up, like 2 very even teams. This was not a blowout. I know the score. Penn State covered, but it could have gone either way. They almost lost the cover. But it was very close for a long time until a couple of turnovers, and then Penn State was able to just exert their will at the end after getting those turnovers. But Boise played. They showed they belonged. I think they played a lot better and showed out a lot better than some of these higher-ranked Big Ten and SEC teams that have got their doors blown off. It didn't look like they should have been on the field. So I thought Boise played great. Now here's the thing with and I see there's some comments about the officials and all that. So I was watching this with my Penn State family. Okay, my Penn State family is where they were complaining about not getting certain holding calls and certain things. And I have a lot of Boise followers on Twitter and Facebook that I interact with, and they were complaining. The penalties were pretty even. I think Boise had 13, Penn State had 10. Yeah. This is one of the most. Penn State had this was one of their highest penalized games. Both teams were committing penalties. It was a physical game. They were holding, they were grabbing, they were clutching. Penn State on Genty, as far as him having 2 fumbles, their basic game plan was to sell out to stop Genty, and they didn't stop him because he still got over 100 yards. Yeah. They did contain him a bit, and what you could see was every single play there was 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 guys coming in and hitting him, punching the ball out, and that's what it takes to stop Genty, and that's what they did. There was a couple calls. Like I said, I think some people are talking about the offensive pass interference. You texted me. Absolutely. Very easily could have been called, maybe should have been called, where the offensive player pushes the Boise defender. And then I think a little bit later in the end zone, there was some PIs the other way that could have been called that weren't called. And that's how games go. I personally don't think that the officiating was a big deal because, like I said, I heard from my Penn State family who, we want this call, we want this call, we want this call, and my Boise family who wanted these calls. To me, it was just a matchup of 2 very solid, good teams. Genty was fantastic yet again, and Penn State, there's this narrative, Genty got shut down, he wasn't good. Hell no, he was great. He was fantastic. It took everything the Penn State defense could do, selling out completely, which I think is really what led to Madsen having such a big game. And he played great. He took advantage of those opportunities. When Penn State was loading the box, he found guys, he kept drives going. I thought it was really, really, really good game. And then, towards the end, Maddox throws a couple interceptions when Penn State's rushing the passer and dropping back into coverage, and they had to catch up. It is what it is. But to me, a good, close game. I enjoyed it. And like I said, it went pretty much exactly what I thought would happen. And again, I think Boise showed it's difficult the way the seeding worked out. It would have been so awesome to see the format. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but It would have been awesome to see Boise have a home playoff game and then go to one of these bowls.
Right.
And we saw that trend where all the home teams that had that first round, they won their games and then went to a bowl and then they all won again.
Right.
So things could have worked out a little different. And, people talked about Penn State having an easy draw. Boise was not an easy draw. That was the most banged up I've seen the Penn State defense, the most physical. The only other game that was
similar. They
were puking. Abdul Carter went out of the game. Denai Dennis Sutton went out of the game. Safety went out of the game, and they were throwing up. They were cramping. They were physically beat up and hurt. The only other team that Penn State played this year that was as physical was Ohio State. I mean, that is the closest comparison for me as far as the defense against that running game. Now, obviously, Boise doesn't have the 5-star wide receivers that Ohio State has. And that, to me, ended up being the difference in the game was Drew Aller had Tyler Warren, who went absolute beast mode yet again, like I said he would. He was the X factor. He was able to hit him. And then, yes, Maddox had a good game and he put up numbers, but in crunch time, when they had to come back, when they had to make plays, Penn State was able to get to him and force him into making some turnovers, throwing some picks. I think he has 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
And, that was the formula that they wanted to be in. Get a lead and then go after Madsen. So that's my thoughts on the game.
Yeah, so I will just say, even they shut down Genty so much, the first touchdown was created by movement of Genty. Genty moved out of the backfield.
Yeah.
He split out wide, and then they ran, I can't remember the guy's name, forward. Well, if you look at the shifts, because Genty's going wide, that's what created some of that opening. So, to your point, they were very focused on what is Ashton Genty doing with or without the football, right? We need to know where this kid is at. And the other thing I will say, we talked about this early on in our preview, or for the preview. I was anxious to see how Boise's defense were going to start. Are they going to play more of that dime prevent, if you will? We're going to try to, actually play defense and not bring a lot of pass rush. And unfortunately, I was worried that's what they were going to do, and that's what they did. and the offense and Aller made them eat their own lunch. Like, it wasn't pretty. And that's when everyone's like, oh, this is going to get out
Especially at the beginning.
At the very beginning, first quarter.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to get out of hand, and oh, this is going to do this, and oh, this is going to do that. And I'm like, not if they start freaking doing what makes Boise's defense. Yes, it's going to be one-on-one, and if you have to take a PIT because the rush didn't get to him, fine. That's the risk that you're going to take. And they did get to that, but they didn't start that way.
Right.
I hated the way they started. It gave them the 14. It gave Penn State an easy. And you're right. It looked really bad for Boise. An easy 14-0 lead. And then they change and they start to rush. They make Aller, not have time to throw the ball, sacks, all that kind of jazz. And I'm going to throw some shade at Aller. If you take away the first quarter, I did not think he looked good at all. And if you take away Tyler Warren, I don't know this kid maybe would have had 5 completions the entire game. Yeah. He was bad, Steve. I'm telling you, he was bad. He ended 13 of 25 for 171. I know he had 3 touchdowns. 2 of them were in the first quarter when the defense wasn't doing what the defense should have been doing. You take away that first quarter and you take away your Mackey Award winner, and you nailed it, and you can spank, what's his name again? Big Mama, spank Big Mama again, because you nailed it. But Tyler Warren he's crazy beast mode. He is the Harrison of the Penn State offense. That's just what he is. You get it close to him, the dude's going to take a touchdown. I mean, Aller misses this dude wide open, and he throws it over him. That's how bad Aller was in the second half of that game. I have to throw some shade at him. And then, what was the other thing I wanted to say? I don't even remember. I just wanted to shade Aller here a little bit. The other thing I want to say, I see some people talking crap about Boise's play calling, Boise's offensive play calling. I thought it was a fantastically called game. I thought Cutter did a fantastic. Was it perfect? No, nobody's going to be perfect. But I see some of these people on the socials like, this was an awfully called game. I don't know what they're doing here, and I'm like, dude, I think the play calling was great. I think against the defense they were playing, it's about as good as you're going to get. We missed 2 field goals, which is very unlike Domus. That gets you to 20 points. And then, we have 2 really good drives in the second half that end up in freaking interceptions, mistakes, where we shoot ourselves in the foot. You get another touchdown there. You're talking 27-31. You're within a freaking score. And so, to your point, and I haven't seen anybody say, oh, Boise shouldn't have been in this. Boise was outclassed. They didn't look good in the first quarter, yes, but after that, I mean, to your point, super physical game. Yep. Boise showed up. Penn State just more talent. I mean, that's just where it is. You got a Big Ten team with a $200 million athletic budget playing Big Ten football with the big boys and the 5-star recruits and I can add all of that in there versus what Jeremiah Dickey calls the blue-collar Boise team. And it is what it is. I'm not knocking Penn State for that, and I'm not knocking Boise for that. That's the reality of college football. They punched each other in the mouth a gazillion times. Penn State just had more talent, and that's who won the ball game, and that's just how it is. So that's my feelings on it anyway.
Well, I will.
You can tell me I'm wrong.
I will disagree regarding Aller.
No,
he didn't have a perfect game.
He looked pretty bad.
No, I know he made some throws. There were 2, probably the first 2 touchdowns specifically, and the one to Amari Evans specifically. That was absolutely amazing. There's like 15 people on the planet that can make
the throw to Amari Evans was good. That was his only good throw of the entire game.
Now, after that, both of the Tyler Warren touchdown passes were pretty darn good.
Not because of Tyler Warren.
Well, he's great, but also the first Tyler Warren touchdown pass, Drew drops it on the very corner of the end zone where only Tyler Warren can get it, and it's a touchdown. But anyways, so I don't think Drew played bad at all. However, I think Boise did a good job. After they woke up and figured they couldn't just hang back and cover. Pick them apart. They started getting after him with some really exotic blitzes, where they're bringing a first guy, delayed a second guy, and delayed a third guy. There was one where the third guy in just came in because Nick Singleton was picking up the blitzers, the first guy in.
Yes, he was.
But the second guy and the third guy,
and they come right behind it. It's like a wave.
Yes, they were. Those blitzes were fantastic, and there's no quarterback that it can take just a guy coming at him straight at him. And do anything with that. Yeah. He just had to eat the ball a lot of times, or he tried to move. And there was a couple throws that weren't spectacular, but I don't know if you listen to the commentators, Penn State does not have the best receiver core. Tyler Warren
Right.
is amazing. The receiver core is not that great. And the announcers, rightly so, were ripping their. You talked about his numbers, 13 for 26.
Right.
He had 5 or 6 that were just dead drops. We won't call that Tyler Warren one a drop, even though it hit him in the hands, because it was a little high. He had to get it over the linebackers, and it was a little high. So not including that, there were about 5 or 6 drops, and the announcers were going on and on about that. Can Penn State get some receivers that can actually catch the ball? So I thought he had a good game, but I want to give a lot of credit to Boise and their defensive coordinator and coming up with those blitzes. Not only were they bringing extra people, but the way they were bringing them in waves from different directions and different timing.
Right.
Because if you just bring everybody at the same time, they can step up, they can move. They were bringing them from different places at different time, which really threw Aller off, and they did a great job of that.
Okay, I think we beat that one to death.
Yeah.
Penn State moves on, and let's. Okay.
Can I say one last thing?
Okay.
So, Surf City Bill is saying Cutter is good, but a little predictable. Honestly, I have to disagree, and I forgot about your point about the play calling. I think Boise had some great play calling. The only thing I didn't necessarily agree with, and maybe you did, that decision to kick the field goal earlier, and before they even kicked it, I was saying you got to go for a touchdown.
I thought they
here.
were going for that
Yeah,
too. I agree with you. I wanted them to go for it. I thought they were going to go for it. Yes,
I thought that was a bad decision, but to me, that's on the head coach. Cutter, I thought they called a good game. They don't have the same talent to match up to Penn State. To me, that's what it is, because they held their own for a long time, and the dam didn't really break. You had those. They got in the hole early,
Right.
and then they held their own for a long
did,
time,
yep.
and the dam didn't really break until there were some turnovers and things like that. I thought they called a good game on offense and really defense. They're about talent wise. They're about 2 touchdowns less talent than Penn State. It's just what it is.
Yep. All right, so Arizona State versus Texas, a double OT thriller. But Texas pulls out the dub. I keep telling peeps this team is overrated in my view, and that is not a knock on Arizona State. They played some great football, especially they got better as the game went on. Double OT, Texas pulls it out. If I'm a Texas fan, I'm not feeling good about the college football playoffs right now. I'm not. I know I said, they're, what are they, a 5.5 point underdog to Ohio State. If I'm an Ohio State fan, I am loving the fact that I'm playing Texas next. So Arizona State here, 510 offensive yards to Texas, 375. I didn't write down the time of possession, but Arizona State, they were all over it. And that's part of that was because Texas early on was scoring very quickly. It didn't take them. They hit some big plays, and they were all over it. And Arizona State just kept coming back. Freaking Scatabo.
Yeah, amazing.
This dude's like a freaking machine.
Yes.
He's throwing the ball. He's running the ball. He had to go out so he could, puke or whatever and get some rest, and he come back in. And you want to see somebody that put it all on the field. Watch that game, and he had nothing left. I mean, I don't know how he had energy in the overtimes. But again, Texas they don't do anything for me. They just don't. I'm sorry. They probably win the damn national championship, and I'm still not going to like them.
So David Jorgensen, one of our Mountain Dweller super fans, is in the chat, and he says all the bye teams lost, and that's crazy. Yes, all 4 bye teams. So we had all 4 of the home teams won in the first round. All 4 of the teams that had byes lost in the second round. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, just about the college football playoff and the seedings and all that. So we're going to talk about that some more. Regarding Texas, first at the beginning of the game, it looked like Texas they were just going to absolutely blow this game away. They were going down the field scoring. I think we were texting back and forth like, "Wow, Texas is making this look easy." Well, they got this lead, and then it was like they just thought they had the game won. They could rest on their laurels. And Arizona State kept going. Scatabo, whatever. He was awesome. The Arizona State quarterback was awesome.
He was.
The dude, we saw Jake Plummer, Jake the Snake on the sideline. Dude reminded me of him, the way he would move around and chuck the ball. So kudos to Arizona State. I mean, they did great. They showed again on the field that they belonged in this. They earned their spot by winning it on the field in the Big 12 championship game. To me, they showed that they earned their spot. Texas has a lot of athletes. Texas has a great defense, I think, defensive line. They have a lot of athletes. Ewers threw some passes that were absolutely amazing.
He did.
But it doesn't ever seem like they can get everything working all together like Ohio State has managed to get everything working.
Right.
Because to me, I think they're similar talent-wise on paper. Maybe Texas is a half a step below, but Ohio State has everything working. I know we're going to talk about that game. Texas just doesn't seem like they have everything working. So kudos to Arizona State. Love the way they played. Scatabo, I want him on my team. I'm hoping the Steelers draft him. He's still available when they get him. I'd love him to have him on my team.
Yeah, just a crazy game. I mean, I was looking forward to the second game of the day, that being the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get off this game because it goes to double overtime. They had to start the Rose Bowl on ESPN2 because they couldn't wait to start the game any later. And this thing's still going, and I didn't turn over. I, of course, kept watching the double overtime. Like, well, I'm missing the beginning of the Rose Bowl, which by the time you turned it over, you realized Ohio State was kicking the Ducks' boot tie.
Yes.
What did you think about that, Steve?
It reminded me a lot of the Tennessee game.
Yeah.
I was completely shocked just because the way the first game went, they were so even. And then, watching Penn State play at Oregon. I mean, Oregon, they didn't lose anybody all year. They looked phenomenal, especially the offense looked phenomenal in the Big Ten championship game. And, Ohio State had looked so poor against Michigan. But like we keep saying, you got to just throw that out the window.
At this point, I don't even put it in by calculus.
Yeah,
anymore.
like it never happened.
Like it didn't happen.
Yeah. But honestly, a lot of people were giving Tennessee crap about getting their doors blown off. Well, Oregon, number one team in the country all year. The same thing happened to them. Jeremiah Smith he's the best wide receiver in the country already.
Kid, man.
If he went into the NFL draft this year, I think he'd be a top 10 pick. But he has to play in college 2 more years. Like, please change the rules and get rid of this guy as a Penn State fan, because I do not want to see him playing 2 more years in a row. And Ohio State, they're just firing on all cylinders. Yep. They have so many good receivers. Howard is managing the offense perfectly. They didn't even really need their run game just because of the way the receivers and the way Howard was distributing the ball and receivers making plays. Their defense continues to be great and physical like it was all season. So both of these are the two. I see JEH talking about the Ducks, so I'm happy for you. The Ducks sucked this week. I'm glad you got to enjoy that. They spent all that Nike money and lost their only playoff game. So I'm happy for JEH, but more about, to me, is Ohio State. The way they're playing, we said all season they were probably the best team on paper. They had a couple hiccups there, but now they look like, honestly, they look unbeatable. Like, if they keep playing like this, I don't know how anybody beats them. I mean, I'd love if my Penn State Nittany Lions get to the final, a rematch, to have another shot at beating them, but I just don't see how anybody beats them right now.
David Jurgensen, OSU on a mission, abso-freaking-lutely, and they look unbeatable. And
we said Ryan Day, after the Michigan game, we said Ryan Day, the only way he saves his job is to win the national championship game. His players seem to like him and want to keep him around, so maybe the players are like, well, shit, we better go stop messing around and go win the natty so we can keep our coach.
I want to go back, and you talked about this, the layoffs and stuff, because Chris says, the layoff hurt everybody. But you see this everywhere.
Yeah.
You see this in the NFL when people sit guys, they already have their bye week locked up, and they'll sit guys. This happens a lot. I see it in the NHL. I'm a big NHL guy. I see players, the top teams are going to rest some guys and do all this. I get it. You don't want players to get injured, and that's why they're doing it. But I think it also throws people out of whack. You can only practice so much and care. Like if I'm a player and you're ready for the playoffs, and now you got to sit and wait. I think that does hurt them, but I will also say it makes teams get healthier, which is also very important. If you have guys that are banged up and they can get a week or 2 extra rest to be full or healthy coming in, I think that's super important. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think some of the issue people are having here is that you had the 3 and 4 seeds being lower seeded teams, but they get the bye because of the structure. Yeah. I know that's something you and I want to get into probably a little bit later, but any thoughts on that?
So I'd like to, so I do. So I'd like to, can we come back to that after we finish the CFP?
We'll put a little,
put a check mark by that. Put a pin in it.
Okay. What was the other thing I was going to say? You were talking
Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith. They just
Jeremiah Smith,
dude, is amazing.
Holy crud! Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, we'll get to the last game and then we can get to that last item. I thought it was really cool. I'm not a Big Ten guy. I let that up to you. I know the teams. I kind of know who's good and who's not. I know the big names, that just general type of information. But they did put up a really neat graphic that I didn't realize, because you hear about this $20 million that OSU spent and all this transfer portal stuff and but they talk defense and that, like, what was it, 10 or 9 of the 11 starters are like 4th and 5th year guys.
Yes.
I mean, they are Ohio State guys on the defense. Now, they did bring in the SEC kid who had a great game.
Yes, Caleb Downs might be the best. We voted him the best on the Big Mountain.
And he was all over the place.
Yes.
And so, they spent some money on him. But overall, a couple little plug-and plays there. But, I mean, that was a Buckeye defense from the get-go. Now, I would say more of that transfers typically occur on the offensive side anyway. And of course, some of that money is being spent to keep their players, to retain who they have, to retain the 4 and 5 year guys who aren't going to go. And not that Ohio State technically has an issue with that, but you still see the top, Georgia guys want to leave Georgia. So it's wherever they can get their money. So a lot of that's retainment to keep the guys that they have developed in their program. And I thought that was really interesting. So
I agree. I have one last thought on that game.
Yeah.
Even though it was a blowout and it was a stinker, the Rose Bowl, man. The Rose Bowl, it's just so beautiful. The setting, and they show the sunset to the granddaddy of them all. I watched the parade in the morning with my wife and my daughters, and just awesome, the tradition. We have so many traditions in college football that are going by the wayside. I hope we keep that tradition, and I think they've done a good job of incorporating it into the playoffs.
Agree.
And I hope they continue to do that.
Totally agree with it. Yep, that was awesome. Surf City Bill, I agree. I want Penn State to win the Natty as well. Not just for Steve, so that Boise State can say that they lost to the national champion. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, let's get to the last one, the one that just ended here about an hour or so ago. Georgia and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, very low scoring for a while. It was 3-0, 3-0, 3-3, 6-3. Then at the very end of the first quarter, the dam kind of broke, and Georgia kind of did it to themselves. I saw people on X that were like, Kirby, why would you do that? Just go into the half 6-3. No, he goes to, they go to try to get some points. There's a turnover. Notre Dame turns that into a touchdown. And at that point, you're thinking, oh, that might be ball game. Well, Notre Dame gets the ball to start the second half, and they run it back for us. And you go, wow, it was a 6-3. It could have been a 6-3 game going into the second half. And before you know it, it was, 20-3. Is that what it was? 23, 13? Yeah, 20-3 because of a turnover and then a kickoff return for a touchdown. Yeah. Massive change there just at the very end of the first half, and beginning of the second half.
Well, so Steven says he knew Gunnar Stockton wouldn't have enough for Georgia. This is one time, Steven, I think you and I disagree.
I do. I thought Gunnar was great.
I thought he played great. I thought he played fantastic. The Georgia receivers were dropping balls, just like I said about Aller and the announcers talking about how many balls they were dropping. The Georgia receivers were probably worse, and they have been that way all this year. And honestly, I didn't really see him. The way he played today, I don't think was a drop-off from Carson Beck, the way he's played earlier in the season. And he was running great. The big thing to me on offense, Georgia just had no offense. The receivers dropped the ball. They couldn't run against Notre Dame. Notre Dame was stopping the run.
Agreed.
Etienne, which is a guy you thought would be a key, and he has been all year. Notre Dame just shut him down, and they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. And on defense, boy, we're used to Georgia having these awesome defenses. I thought they were terrible against Notre Dame. You have Riley Leonard running crazy through them. They just couldn't do anything, taking bad angles. These 5-star, super talented players couldn't tackle, didn't know how to take an angle. And Kirby's a great coach. I think he expected this to be like what he's used to in these playoff games, the 52-47 shootout, and he coached aggressively. Well, nobody told him this was going to be so they start as a 6-3 rock fight where his team can't score.
Yes.
So if he had to do it over again, I think he would coach this differently. But got to give credit to Notre Dame. They had their game plan. They didn't really throw the ball much. They didn't need to. Riley Leonard ran around a ton. They ran the ball. They played good defense. And Georgia, I think, just if you're a Georgia fan, you got to be disappointed, I think.
No doubt.
And if you're an SEC fan, the only team team still in it is Texas, who this is their first year in the SEC, and Texas just barely escaped with their lives from Arizona State.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been interesting if no SEC team was in the semifinals. And I've been shading the SEC a little bit. I'm kind of jokingly on X. But yeah, they're not having a good year. They have been pretty good here over for quite a while.
And I have a lot of respect for the SEC over time.
Yeah.
But you had all these idiots calling out Indiana,
And that's the
Boise, SMU, saying all these SEC teams should be in just because.
Right.
And all these SEC teams are better than it. No, they're not. You're getting your butts kicked, and you got only one more team to go, and they're going to play a freaking Ohio State super team.
So we got Bill, that college football guy. He says he was having a war on X. So I'm going to have to check out X after this and see what in the world he was getting into. And his buddy, Surf City Bill, says we got to start all over. Just so Bill can hear everything that we had to say. It wasn't that interesting, Bill, honestly.
Just hit the rewind.
Yeah, it wasn't that interesting. But yeah, we talked about Gunner. I agree with you. I mean, he didn't set the world on fire, but they didn't lose because of him.
No.
I mean, some of the drops were abysmal. The dude gets hit. I don't know the names of these players. Beautiful throw down the field.
Yes.
Whacks him in the face mask because he doesn't have any hands, apparently.
Yes.
And even the one nice long touchdown,
Yes.
the dude just about bobbled that to the ground, too. So yeah, I agree with you. They didn't have much running game. He's not Carson Beck. Right. Nobody expected him to be Carson Beck. But yeah, whatever. I don't care.
I will say, to give Steven a little bit of credit, he got outshined by Riley Leonard, I think, who was a little more of the superhero. But Gunner didn't get much help from his team.
So thanks to Steve, I got a nice long video of the Rose Bowl parade.
Yes.
Justin's talking about the Western Thunder marching band from the University of Wyoming who marched in the Rose Bowl. I actually saw a little tweet on X from Ryan Thorburn. We had him on the show a little bit ago. And right after that, Steve sent me a nice long, because I was not watching the parade at that point, a nice long video of the Western Thunder marching band thundering their way down the parade route.
They looked great. Those uniforms are sharp, those colors, and in the sun and with the backdrop of the rose. I mean, they just looked fantastic. It was really cool seeing them.
It was very cool. So first time, I think they said. First time that they were at the Rose Bowl parade. Okay, so that's it. I think you wanted to talk. We're going to go back to our pin. Yes. You wanted to talk a little bit about the seeding and the buys and all that kind of stuff.
So well, first of all, I just want some general thoughts. We had the very first game was that Notre Dame Indiana game. Yeah. Well, and so many people just crapped on Indiana because they got beat by Notre Dame. They were the lower seed and they were playing Notre Dame on the road. Well, let's look at what happened. All four of the home teams, the higher seed home teams, won in the first round.
Right.
Home field advantage is huge.
Yes.
Very, very huge. You and I, we wondered throughout the season, would you rather have that home game or would you rather have the bye? I think both of us thought having the bye would be the better thing. You got that extra week of rest. Right. And in the NFL, you talked about the NFL. In the NFL, yes, teams will start a little slow after the bye, but they generally win their home games, like 80%. If you have a bye in the NFL, it's like 80% win their games.
Okay.
But in this, all four of the teams that had a bye lost. So my first thought is people need to stop overreacting and looking at the results of one game and coming up with these stupid narratives and putting it on Twitter that obviously this team sucks. Right. These people shouldn't really, be in. All the teams that made it into the playoff played their way in. Mm-hmm. We heard so much Paul Feinbaum talking about Alabama as they continued to lose. They lose to Vanderbilt. They lose to Oklahoma, get their butts kicked. They could only score 3 points in the, I think, second to last game of the year against Oklahoma. They lose their third game. And Paul Feinbaum is insisting they should just be in because the SEC is better. Well, screw you, Paul Feinbaum. I hope you see this. I did him see through
waved the white flag. He's going to pretend that didn't happen in about 1 week, and he'll be back to banging that.
Too freaking little, too late. Yeah. And not just him. All the talking heads on ESPN, I know they're invested in the SEC, but so many people just taking these narratives. Let the games play out. We've seen Arizona State gave Texas everything they can handle. A Texas team that has all of the advantages, all of the talent, has 2 5-star future NFL quarterbacks on the roster, and Arizona State played their way into the playoff and damn near upset Texas. Boise played great. And we've seen all the teams that had those buys, maybe that didn't work out for them. Right. So, all the complaining, all the harping on the narratives, let everything play out. So that leads me to what should happen in the future. Well, both you and I, we loved those first round home playoff games. Yep. Great atmosphere, and it looks like it is a great So far, it looks like it's a great advantage to the school, not only winning that first round game, but then carrying that momentum on as all the teams that played at home now won in the second round. So for me, they're not going to retract teams, or they're not going to go down to 8.
Right.
So for me, I honestly would increase it to 16 and give all of the top 8 seeds a first round bye. Or not a first round bye, a first round home game, and actually play the first 2 rounds at home on campus. They're used to playing these games. They have the facilities. They can do it. And then don't incorporate the bowls until the semifinal, which would have been this coming round. Then you can incorporate the Sugar Bowl. You can incorporate the Rose Bowl. They can start the playoff a little bit sooner. But I think from what we've seen so far, let the teams play their way in. Don't just assume that the 5th or 6th best team in the SEC or even in the Big Ten is better than some other team just because of what they did 3 years ago. Let the teams play their way in. Give them an opportunity. If you earn your way in, you're the higher seed, play at home the first 2 rounds. I think fans will enjoy it more. It'll be better on TV. It'll be better in person. The teams will enjoy it being home, and then incorporate the bowls. That's kind of my thought here.
So first of all, I would just say I made a similar comment, I think, yesterday on X to be like, can we all just shut up, enjoy college football? Like, just let's enjoy what's happening. They got the right teams. Let's stop pissing about who 13 was. Let's stop pissing about who was 5 versus who was 8. Just enjoy watching the freaking games. Yeah. Everybody's worried about everything other than the actual football game because all we want to do is bitch and complain around here anymore. I made a couple comments on X about that. I know your Mark was going off about, oh, we got to figure out, we need a national standard about what targeting is. Dude, it's people. You're going to have human error. Yep. You're going to have people interpret it differently. You're going to, just chill, bro. I know you're upset, and I'm kind of tired of hearing from that guy anyway. Just shut up. Your Mark, shut up. Feinbaum, at least that's what he's paid to do. He's paid to be on there and say stupid shit. Your Mark, go get in your office and work on, expanding the Big 12 or something. Anyway, back to the college football playoff. I actually disagree. I don't think we need to change a whole lot. This is year 1. We don't need to change anything. Keep it where it's at. You take 12 teams. I'm fine with the first round buys, and here's why. Okay, yes, this year in the first year, all 4 of them lost after their bye week. Like I said, 2 of those 4 were the underdogs. They weren't supposed to win the game anyway, and guess what? They didn't win the game. Yep. That doesn't have anything to do with the bye week, in my opinion. I don't think Boise was hurt by the bye week. Ashton Genty said he felt as good as he felt since the beginning of the season. Guess what, Boise fans? You want that dude to be as good as he can get, as he feel as good as he can. So it didn't hurt Boise. They lost to a better team. Not an issue. Arizona State, they played great. I wish they would have won. It would have been a good upset, and it would have been an upset. So what the hell are we talking about? Texas is now the only SEC team in the college football playoff. That's where we stand. Oregon just met a team that is on a mission, as it was said earlier. Bill says he had something being hot in the postseason is absolutely critical. No team is any hotter than the Buckeyes are right now. The Ducks got run over by the best team right now that's playing in college football. That can change in a week or 2 or whenever the hell we play our next games. But OSU is playing the best football in the nation, and the Ducks got cooked by them. What they freaking do? Okay, was it an upset? Was it not? Remember, Oregon was the favorite. So again, the favorite won that game, according to Vegas. And then the other one's Georgia versus Notre Dame. Georgia didn't have their starting quarterback, and I'm not blaming it just on that, but yes, that matters. So I'm not jumping off the daggone edge of the cliff here because of one season of the first time of the 12 team, the buys, this and that. I say you give it as is. The only thing that, if they want to reseed this thing, okay, I guess you can reseed it. I think they need to determine, are the conference championships the most important thing? Because that's how it's built right now. Yep. If you're a conference champion, that is more important than if you're the second best team in any conference, even though that might mean you're the second best team in the nation. So are we still going with conferences matter? Conference championships matter. And if we're saying yes, they do, which I'm under the yes, they do, I think conference championships should matter, because if they don't, if we don't do these buys and we don't care about conference champions, then I'm with the people that say, then let's get rid of conference championship games. But I don't think we should do that. I don't think the conferences think we should do that. Conference championship games are important to that conference, and they should be important to the college football playoff. And I wasn't getting ready to go off a freaking handle here tonight, Steve, but I'm off the handle, and I think we should let things be. It's okay. Nothing's wrong with this. We're going to have the four teams that should be in the semifinals, in my opinion, Steve, are in the semifinals. Yeah. The only one that you would be like, wow, I can't believe Oregon isn't there, is because Oregon just got steamrolled.
Yeah, right.
And they got steamrolled by a team that's the best damn team in the country. So what the hell are we talking about?
Well, I mostly agree with you.
Calm me down.
Okay, I mostly agree with you, because I agree. There's no reason to overreact. I don't necessarily see a reason to change the seedings or whatever. I just want more of the home playoff games. I would have.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, I think quarters should have been home. That I'm good with.
Imagine seeing, and maybe not. Well, I think you and I we want more home games, but I think we have a different approach. Because I would expand and go to either 14 or 16 and have the first 2 rounds at home. Because imagine a first round with Boise at home hosting an SMU or maybe a Tennessee. Okay, before they move on. The way it's set up. I think we could have. I think it looks like there might be a lot of advantage, and you're right. We don't know from one year. It looks like there's a lot of advantage competitively for the home games, but not just competitively. I think those teams deserved. Like, I think Oregon deserved to have a home playoff game.
I totally agree with you.
I think Boise deserved to have a home playoff game.
Yes.
And the teams that were in it, and it benefited my team, okay, who lost the Big Ten championship game.
Right.
What did they get for losing? They got to have a home playoff game against a Southern team, which got got them on a roll, got them hot. Ohio State, the same thing. Yeah. They got to have a home playoff game against a Southern team because they didn't even make it to the Big Ten, and that got their momentum going, playing at home in front of that crowd, and they carried that momentum right into this game. So I would like to see more. The higher seeds. I would like to see more home games, and the higher seeds get that advantage.
Okay. Well, and I agree with the home games. I totally agree with that. I think the first round and quarters should 100% be in the home stadiums, especially if we're still going with the buys. The fact that those 4 teams didn't get home games, I think, is borderline criminal.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, we beat that to death for at least now.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll talk about it again. So I got nothing else. Let's just make sure. I know Bill is chiming in with the buys. He's saying
2-week buy.
2-week buy. Right. Yeah. The 2-week buys. And then, of course, and I get it. Top 4 in rankings get the buy instead of top 4 conference champions get the buy. I'm not going to agree or disagree with that. I'm just saying what we got right now is for the champions, and I think it's important for the champions to get something. Yes. That's all. And if people say it's enough for them just to get an auto, I hate to say auto. People say that, and there's nothing auto.
Right.
The top 5 conferences, the top 5 conference champions make the playoffs, and they're seeded wherever they're at. Okay, I'm fine with that too. But I think there needs to be something for conference championships.
Otherwise, why play?
Exactly.
Why play them?
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know, Bill, that college football guy. What do you think about the conference championship games? I mean, maybe Bill's under the they don't really matter anymore.
I would love to get rid of them,
Would you?
But they're not going to. I mean, you know why?
Yeah, it's called money.
Exactly, money makes the world go round.
Yeah, for sure. Why would you want to get rid of them? Because they're meaningless.
Yeah, because they're meaningless. I mean, we saw that with, again, the Big Ten. Again, it benefited my team. Penn State lost it was better that they lost the Big Ten championship game, because if they won it, they would have been playing Ohio State this week. They would not have even had a home game.
That's true.
I think that they've become somewhat meaningless. I think my preference would be to get rid of them and have 16 teams.
Because of the 12 team.
Yeah, and because
they weren't meaningless with a 4.
They weren't.
I mean, you had to win that sucker to get into
the 4. But now that you have more teams, because the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get 3 or 4 teams in. So
okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We made it an hour. I thought we were going to have a short episode, but when we get going, you just never know what's going to happen.
Also, I would say Georgia benefited by Well, no, that kind of worked out the other way. So never mind.
Okay.
Never mind.
Well, we will be back next week to pick the semifinals. Gonna have another live show. And we are going to get into some really interesting topics. I've been teasing people on X, and I've gotten some messages. Stop teasing us. Just put them out already.
Yeah.
Well, it takes some time to do this stuff. But we're going to talk Mountain West and Pac-12 media information. We're going to talk Pac-12 expansion / additions. Mountain West additions and expansion, if you want to call it expansion. And I think Steve might have a little bit of nuggets on Big Ten, ACC types of stuff. And of course, we got to talk transfer portal. We haven't even gotten to talk about that.
I'm really going to focus on looking at expansion going forward and how TV ratings may play into that.
Okay.
And the last thing I want to say, I think it was JH was giving us a little bit of shit. Go back up to the.
What are we going?
He was giving us a little bit of. He was
Go back up where? Up here?
Yeah. About our picks,
our
our Ole
score.
Miss pick. Well, here's the thing. We both said we thought Ole Miss would get out to a big lead, and then we thought Duke would hang around, stay in it, because the line is 14.5. It's 24-7 right now. We're right there in that range for them to cover. So I'm feeling not great, but but not I'm not peeing my pants yet.
Hey, 24-7 is better than 24-0.
Well,
so at least Duke scored.
Well, you know what the best part is, right? That I'm leading you, and we pick the same. So
that's right. It really is irrelevant for us right now. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Oh, transfer portal. We got to get into the transfer portal, and then we have some more feelers out on interviews. We have hopefully going to be bringing back at least one, if not two, of our former guests to talk to them. I'm excited about that. And as you guys know, we're going to keep going on football. That's all we basically do on the Big Mountain. Dabble in the Mountain West basketball here a little bit more this year, but we're mostly going to be college football. So with that, hey guys, we thank you for tuning in to another live show, and we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.